welcome to Miranda's Movie Musings. Episode 3. It's really fun. I'd say the editing part's my favorite, because doing this, the talking to the camera is a little awkward. But I think once I just get going, it's good. I can talk or I can not talk. I can sit here and think about what I'm going to say, and you guys don't even know because I chop it out. I saw First Man this weekend. It was very well done. It stars Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong and Claire Foy as Janet Armstrong, and it's about the first landing on the moon and Neil Armstrong's journey to get to that point. It's directed by Damien Chazelle, who did La La Land. It was a very well acted movie. The story was good, but it wasn't as powerful as some other movies I've seen. It let us know more about the family life of Neil Armstrong and his relationship with Janet and how he was as a man. He's not an outspoken, in-your-face kind of guy. He's more of an introvert, and Ryan Gosling did really well at emoting what he was feeling. Throughout the movie, there wasn't a lot of dialogue coming from Ryan Gosling. It was all in his face and in his eyes and his reactions to his friends dying and his reactions to losing his daughter at the start of the movie. And it just showed how focused he was. It was really interesting to get to know that side of Neil Armstrong, because all I know of him is that he was the first man to step on the moon, and he said, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Claire Foy is phenomenal. Claire Foy was amazing. Claire Foy was in The Crown. I also know her from Upstairs Downstairs, and she's gonna play Lisbeth Salander in The Girl in the Spider's Web, and I am so ready for that movie. This role as Janet was really good because even though it was a supporting role, she was still able to bring that character out and to show how much in love she is with Neil and Neil in love with her. And she said in the movie, "I wanted a normal life. That's why I married Neil." It's interesting that she said that because her life is normal except for her husband. He's an extraordinary person with the complementary aspects of her in his life. They together went to the moon. It wasn't just Neil. She had to sacrifice things. She was always at home listening to the radio, worried to death that she was going to lose the love of her life. They just acted so well in this movie, and they expressed the emotions in their faces and their facial expressions more than through their dialogue, which I love in movies because it makes you pay attention to their face. It makes you want to know what they're thinking. It was sit on the edge of your seat kind of acting. That's a testament to a really good actor, is when they can express their emotions without saying a single word. There were a lot of faces I recognized. It was a really big cast of a lot of people I know. Kyle Chandler played Deke Slayton, who was Neil Armstrong's one of his bosses. Ciarán Hinds was in it. Ciarán Hinds played Aberforth Dumbledore in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. He was also in The Debt. He's the narrator of one of my favorite TV shows, My Mother and Other Strangers, which you guys should all watch because it's really good. I've got IMDb up right now. He's Mance Rayder in Game of Thrones. He was also in Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. Corey Stoll from House of Cards was in it. Corey Stoll played Buzz Aldrin. He was in The Bourne Legacy. He was in a movie called This Is Where I Leave You with Jason Bateman. He's going to be in an episode of The Romanoffs on Amazon Prime. Like I said before, Kyle Chandler's in this movie. He was in Friday Night Lights. He was in Bloodline. He was a fan favorite on Grey's Anatomy in season 2, I believe. He was in Argo. He's been around a while. Jason Clarke is in this movie. He played John Connor in Terminator Genisys. He was in one of the new Planet of the Apes movies. He's a character actor too. He's got supporting roles in a lot of movies. He was in Zero Dark 30, White House Down. He was also recently Ted Kennedy in Chappaquiddick. Everyone's a familiar face. For me anyway, because I see a lot of things and I remember faces really well. Like I see someone in a movie like I did last night. I saw one of Neil Armstrong's best pals in this movie. Christopher Abbott was in The Sinner last summer. So anyway, he didn't have a beard though, so that's why I was like, I know this guy, but he looks really different without a beard. Ethan Embry was in this movie. Ethan Embry was on Once Upon a Time for a while, and the first thing I ever saw Ethan Embry in was Sweet Home Alabama with Reese Witherspoon. And so that's why I know his face, because I watched that movie all the time when I was younger. So whenever I see him, I'm like, hey, it's the guy from Sweet Home Alabama. But he's been around. He's been in Grace and Frankie recently, Sneaky Pete. I just recognize people all the time. My family and my friends, they like to call me the walking IMDb, because when we go to a movie, they're like, Miranda, who's that? And I usually know the answer to them. It was hilarious when we saw The Greatest Showman last year. My dad, he took 3 trips down because he was sitting on the other side, and when he recognized Michelle Williams, he got up and walked over and sat down and was like, Miranda, who's that? I was like, that's Michelle Williams. She was in this and this and this. And he was like, oh yeah. And then he walked away. He does that all the time. Even when we are sitting together, he's like, Miranda, who's that? First Man had a lot of familiar faces, and I think that's why I enjoyed it, because I recognized so many people, and I was like, wow, you're doing great. Damien Chazelle did really well with directing, mainly because he had to help Ryan Gosling get the emotions out without dialogue. There are only some directors who can do that. J.A. Bayona is one of those directors. He directed A Monster Calls. That movie was so good. Oh my god, it helped me process through the sadness of when my grandma died. And Martin McDonagh who directed Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri last year, really get people to show what they're feeling. Damien Chazelle did a great job pulling the emotions from everyone because they lost so many friends in their journey to get to Apollo 11 and to get onto the moon. I'm going to talk about the Oscars again. Claire Foy's probably going to get nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Ryan Gosling's definitely going to get a Best Actor nomination. I wouldn't be surprised if Damien Chazelle gets Best Director nomination, but if it does get a Best Picture nomination, I don't think it's going to win because it didn't have that feeling. It was a really well done movie. It was very, very good. I wasn't as amazed as I was by La La Land or as I was by A Star is Born last weekend or even by The Hate U Give. There was one piece of music I really, really listened to in this movie, and that was when Apollo 11 was taking off for the moon. It was this big orchestral piece when they were in Apollo 11 shooting up to out through the atmosphere. It was just like this big crescendo of a song, and I really paid attention to it then, and it was so good. So it might get a Best Score nomination. If you're interested in going to see a story about Neil Armstrong and learn more about him and his family and his journey to the moon and their journey to the moon, I would go see this movie. Ryan Gosling does really well. You'll recognize everyone like I did because everyone's familiar, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.